that install is going to go right here. And next up, we're going to pull this off and show you how to wire it up. Using a flathead screwdriver, pop it in here, pop this panel down. Once you get to a certain point, you can just use your hands. There we go. These are the connectors that connect it to the car. You just want to make sure you have them all. If you're missing one, that means it's probably still in the car. When you take this off, the only thing that you could technically break are these little clips, and you don't need all 8 or 10 in this case. You don't need all 10 to hold this unit on. If you want to remove it, which I suggest, just use a flathead screwdriver. It is going to be a little tight. It's going to be tough. Just be careful. They make a metal tool for this, but the average person would not have that metal tool. So I'm not going to use mine. I'll show you how to do it with a screwdriver. So this is the way it goes up. You want to figure out which side you want your push button to be. When you figure that out, you just use a flathead screwdriver. There's a little slot there. Put it in the slot and it pries it back. And then you can just use your finger to safely pull it out and remove it. So I failed to tell you that you would need some tools. You'll need a screwdriver. You'll need a drill bit. And you can use a knife and cut this out with a knife if you really wanted. You could just like mark your hole and cut it out until this fits in it. But we're gonna use a drill today. So look at your orientation. My tabs are on the bottom, which technically mean they're on the top. This will not fit if you put it up here because it will touch on the back side of the car. So we want to put it about here. Again, look at where the tab orientation is. We want to start drilling right here in the center, not the center of the plate, the center left to right, and then about 1/3 down from the bottom. And then we'll drill here. Very carefully. We're going to start to slowly enlarging this hole until this fits perfectly in that slot. What I'm going to do now is cut this tape here very carefully just to free up this wire. Just simply score it a little bit so it'll break, and then do it again here. Again, very carefully, not puncturing anything but the tape. And that should have given me enough. Also unplugged it. But then I'm just going to carefully pull these. And again, I didn't score it deep enough, so it's better to go not deep enough the first time than too deep. And this just frees up the wire because we're going to deal with this portion here. All right, so next up, what we want to do is pull the gray wire to the side and just cut it. Now we want to go to the green and cut it as well. Cut those in the middle so you have enough room to work with them. And then after cutting them, we want to splice just the tip of it, just enough to be able to access the bare wire, and then we'll move on to the next step. What I'm doing here is just creating that jumper. The jumper is going to go between where the switch is, or where the actual connector is. It's going to go between the gray and the green. If you look right here, these are just going to be connected together with this jumper. All right, so basically you put the green and this jumper together. We're going to put in slide it in. I'm going to use some pliers to tighten this down. Go ahead and crimp it, just this one side, and then we'll move on to the other side. So this, just twist it together. All right, then we're going to put another one on this side. Go ahead and put this all the way in as far as you can. I'm going to crimp it down as well, just the one side of it. and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, next up, the gray line with the jumper goes into the gray of the car. We'll put that all the way in, and then we'll crimp that down. That is a smaller wire, and it's a solo wire, so we want to make sure we get this nice and tight, and then we'll heat shrink it. Before I move on, I'm going to go ahead and heat shrink this, only because that wire is small, and I do not want that wire to come out. Next up, we're going to run this one, which will go to our switch, and this one will go to our power line here. Connect it to this one so we can slide both of them in together. Slide this in, and then we will crimp that down. Now we heat shrink the other side. My ground wire is going to be grounded right here on the car. This is my hot wire coming from the external switch with my jumper. This will go to the button here. When the button is pressed, with all of this connected and this plugged back into the car, when this button is pressed, it will release the latch. All right, let's put it together. I'm gonna run this in here, tighten it down. Next up, we're gonna take this and run it to our ground bolt. This is a 10 millimeter, so what we're gonna do is back it down, put this in, and then tighten the 10 millimeter back up. So we're gonna take the 10 millimeter bolt down, loosen it up, tuck this behind it, and singe that between the bracket and the car to be grounded. And that's nice and tight. Last step here, before we put things back together, is to run this back into the plug. And after we do that, we're gonna do a simple test by pushing the button and listen for the sound. And that means it works. When I press the button, it releases the latch within that, which if the trunk were closed, it would allow it to open. So before you put this back up, you have to run this through and then put your paneling back up. And it just all snaps back into place. I'll do this quickly. And this goes here, tucks in, and you just push it up to snap it back into place. And now you're all set.